Welcome to V is for Victory, a podcast about how small businesses overcome big battles. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a boutique marketing firm in the Chicagoland area where I'm also a part-time professor of an advertising course. Join me as I talk with entrepreneurs about the challenges they face as well as their strategies for success. Are you looking to go from podcasting to profiting? Podcast Media Machine is the #1 production team to help you achieve a return on your investment. They'll help you design, produce, and turn your podcast profitable. Visit podcastmediamachine.com and tell them Jill sent you. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of V is for Victory. My special guest today is Jason Skeesick and Skeesick.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's correct. Okay. Sorry. First thing out of the gate, mess up your name. Super good, Jill. But anyways, he's a veteran. He's an entrepreneur. He's a podcaster himself. And so, Jason, welcome to the show.
Jill, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited that you would squeeze me in before you pop out another baby. That's such a huge honor for me to be considered for the show right now.
Yeah, thank you. You're going to be my last interview before the baby comes. So
I don't know if I can handle that pressure.
Let's hope it doesn't come on air. Right? Yeah. That would make for an interesting episode.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your background. I'm actually I've never had a veteran on the show.
Okay.
Thank you for your service, first of all.
I think you're worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, you must. And so talk to me a little bit about that, because I would love to kind of pick your brain about that and that whole experience and how it's kind of shaped your view of the current landscape of the world.
Sure. Well, for starters, you should understand something about me. I'm a big believer in core values. I think that entrepreneurs, but people in general, all have really strong core values that kind of guide them to where they currently are and where they're headed. And so for me, my story starts with my first core value, which is the spirit of the puppy. I was born with that. I was born with the spirit of the puppy. I love meeting new people. I love trying new things. If I have an idea, boom, I'm off to the races to go tackle it. But as a young man, that did not leave me very much opportunity for success. And so I recognized that, thank God. And I joined the military to get my second core value. My second core value is what I call military mindset. And so that's discipline, that's hard work, that's showing up, that's not just raising my hand, but stepping forward when I see an opportunity to take responsibility for something. And so those two things together have made me who I am and what I've done ever since. But my time in the military was great. I learned how to work really hard. I learned how to work as a part of a very tight-knit team of people who didn't pick to work with each other, who didn't pick the work that they were doing, and who couldn't quit. And that's a really powerful thing to work through. And I also got to live in Germany for 2 years, which is fantastic. I got to see the world and travel quite a bit. I think the military was probably the best decision and the hardest decision that I probably ever had to make.
You know, there's tremendous value and lessons in what you just spoke about in terms of not being able to pick your work. And I kind of gripe all the time on my show about younger generations and how they want to pick and choose the things they like about a job and not do the things they don't like. And you don't get away with that in the military. So talk to me a little bit about how you see that playing out in the entrepreneurial world, or I don't know if you have people who work underneath you in your businesses, and if, how do you help employees like overcome that kind of mindset of, well, it's not making me happy, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
as a business owner, you got to do some things that don't make you happy all the time.
Well, in fact, I would say that I probably don't do anything that doesn't make me happy anymore. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, as an entrepreneur, I've been able to choose my path. I've been able to choose the work that I want to do. And so I really do not put myself in a position anymore where I'm doing anything that doesn't give me energy. So whether it's talking on the phone to an entrepreneur, recording a podcast, working with somebody to help them through a problem, or even the things that I wouldn't have in the past gotten energy from or seen the value in. This is sort of to address your point, which is, as a human being, we have this unbelievable ability to reason our way, to think through these types of things. And so what I've found out is there are things that previously that wouldn't have given me energy that maybe have to get done, taking out the trash, eating my vegetables, checking my spreadsheets, tracking my stats, whatever that may be, that actually I have fallen in love with, because I understand that doing those things will give me the success and will allow me to do more and more, and make a bigger impact on the world. And so what I would say is I absolutely don't do things that I don't want to do or that drain energy from me. I never would recommend that somebody continue to do that. However, what I have become is a shepherd of my own attention span. And what I mean by that, Jill, is I found that if I'm not interested in something, there's just no amount of money you can pay me that'll allow me to do it well. Whereas even looking back before I knew I was an entrepreneur, I've always had boundless energy for those things that I'm interested in, for those things that I get excited about. Growing up, I loved snowboarding. I worked at a snowboarding hill. I loved cars. I worked at a shop. I loved, having nice clothes. I worked at the mall for the discount. And so it's one of those things where looking back, I've always had that mindset. But now I've just been able to sort of create a situation where that herd is drawn towards things that are really profitable and add value to other people and hopefully the world.
I like that. So it's basically a shift in mindset of like, this might be a mundane task, but in the bigger picture, it's going to lead to either more profitability, more impact, future success. That's great. I love that.
Thanks.
Take me back to the military for just a minute. What was your role? What were you responsible for?
So I was a network switching systems engineer. And what that means is they hand you a shovel and you dig holes and then you put conduit in and pull miles and miles of cable by hand. So what it's supposed to mean is you set up the internet and you set up the phone and you make sure that continues to run. You're a node center operator was my job. And I did do that some of the time. So I'm just kidding. But actually what we ended up doing for the bulk of my deployment to Iraq was basically work on a chain gang. I mean, we were literally digging trenches and pulling miles and miles of cable through a fiber optic cable in order to bring, what you would think of as like your AT&T or Verizon wireless wired internet to the different, parts of the base. And what we found, or what I found was we were working 7 12 hours days in very, very hot weather, 110, 120-degree weather, in holes with long sleeves on and helmets and long coats on. I found that it was if you ask my mother, I would call her and be like, I'm having the time of my life out here. I'm working hard. I'm getting in shape. I've made these great friendships. You've never had a better barbecue than the crappy gristly steak that you managed to somehow get at the PX and cook over, a mocked up, not even real grill on rocks after a long week like that. And or you've never enjoyed alcohol so much as when your mom sends it to you in an old Listerine bottle so you can have one night of fun with your friends.
She
And
did
so
that.
yeah, she did that a couple of times for us. But yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. It taught me how, like I said, it taught me how to work with people who I didn't pick. And now that I
Right.
get to pick those people, man, it feels like, a vacation. It feels so easy.
Yeah, you're working with your friends.
Yeah.
I've got a client that's like, she owns a gym and she's just like, I mean, I go to work with, 20, 30 of my best friends every day.
Yeah.
And so that's a nice perk. Okay, so you came back from Iraq in what year?
So I got out of the military in 2008. And when I did two things, Jill. First, I signed up for school in finance and went down the path of becoming a captain of industry and taking over the world through finance, which certainly never happened. And then the second thing that I did was, as a hobby, two other veterans and I started a small CrossFit gym on a dusty fourth floor of a warehouse. And within a couple of years, what I found was I'd be working on a $50 million deal, a $10 million deal, a $25 million deal. And all I could think about, Jill, was that dusty CrossFit gym with my $9,000 a month revenue, where many months we were having to put money back in just to stay open. And so it just occurred to me that, I was much better suited to being an entrepreneur. And so through a circuitous path, I made my way to being a full-time entrepreneur, and it changed everything. We We 10x'd our business as soon as we started to treat it like a capital B business, and use some of those things we had learned in school. We were able to grow our population dramatically. We were able to make a real living all of a sudden, and we were able to change the lives of so many more people because of that.
Where is your, do you still have the gym?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where are
so I
you?
own Bucktown CrossFit in Chicago, also called Chicago Elite Fitness.
Oh yeah. Okay. I used to
Yeah.
live in Bucktown.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So I'm out
That's
in New
great.
Lenox right now. I'm out in the
Oh,
suburbs.
cool. Yeah, my
Yeah.
my wife is from that area.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a small world, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's great. Yeah, so that my friend that I was just telling you about, my best friend, that's a CrossFit box that she owns too. So
Yeah, I bet I
it's
know her.
well, she's in Wisconsin, in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, so about
Cool.
6 hours northwest of here.
Sure.
But yeah, it I love CrossFit because it just draws a certain target market. So
Mm.
it's natural progression there. Talk to me about how you would describe how CrossFit changes lives. I want to hear it from you. I hear it all the time from my client, but
Well, I'm not sure if I'll say it how they would say it, but
right.
what I will tell you is we live in a world where it's a secular world. We live in a world that's not bound around small groups of congregational churches as much as it used to be. Certainly, those people are out there, and I have the most love for those folks as well. But this is something that humans need. We need these tightly bound communities. And that's why you see CrossFit or jujitsu or hot yoga or cycling or marathon runners or even book clubs and things that aren't to do with fitness. That's why you see these really passionate folks gathered around these common ideas and ethical systems, right? And so when you're a young man or woman and you played sports growing up and you go to college and you get that freshman 15 and maybe never get rid of it, and then you go get your first white collar job, you find yourself inside of this petting zoo for suit wearing people, and you realize that you just don't feel like the person you remember being. And so that's where somebody like me steps in and reminds you of sort of your tribal nature, right? One of my core values is tribal, and it's because we dress similar, we act similar, we talk similar, we have a similar ethical system of what a virtuous man or woman would be like, right? And so it was really great to have this support system in the city of Chicago where we could go
Mhm.
out to a bar and I see everybody drinking maybe vodka sodas. Don't get me wrong, we definitely threw down, but it was cool to be in a place where the right thing to do was also the virtuous thing to do, was also the thing that was going to get you towards your goals. And so, yeah, I mean, I could talk about the methodologies of CrossFit, but really it was the congregation, right? It was the community, the tribe. People ask me what I'm most proud of, owning one of the biggest CrossFit gyms in the country. And what I would say is it's the 5 or 10 babies that are walking around because their parents met at our gym. And
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
why, yeah, I mean, I'm still invited to weddings regularly of folks that met at our gym. And those people continue on to this day. And if any of them hear this, shout out to you guys. I mean, that is definitely the legacy that I left behind when we moved from Chicago to Indiana in 2020. But fortunately, my second in command took over the gym and bought it, most of it from me. My brother from another mother, Andrew Westcott, is running that tribe very, very well. I think tonight's their holiday party, carrying that tradition on. Um, so yeah, it's been a great ride, and it's changed a lot of people's lives for the better.
I love that. Yeah, my client does a holiday party too. The one night a year she gets absolutely shit faced. Otherwise, she is so
Yeah,
clean. Takes such good
uh,
care of her body, treats it so well.
she's better
Um,
than I then.
but yeah, they pick up the whole bar tab for anybody at the gym
Oh
that
yeah,
comes. So
yeah.
it's a really fun time for them. And
Wow.
yeah, she actually, so funny story about her is she had this tattoo of the word community, and so many
Mm,
members from the gym went out and got that same tattoo. So now they're I mean, they're, talk about a
mm.
bond. They all share the
Wow.
same tattoo, and then we turned that tattoo into part of her logo actually
Cool.
for her
Very cool.
box. So yeah. Oh, that's so great. You moved to Indiana, huh?
Yeah, I
You're
live
a
in the
Hoosier
Indiana
now.
Dunes. Well, yeah,
Okay.
sort of. I live in the Indiana Dunes. So believe it or not, I live in a small beach town in Indiana. So I'm here nestled in a dune about 200 yards off of Lake Michigan and a beach.
Is it Miller Beach?
No, we're just
No.
just east of that. So we're Ogden Dunes, right
Okay.
next to the national park.
Nice. Okay. All right. Talk to me about how you actually grew the business. What were the tactics? What did
Mm,
you leverage?
yeah.
What did you try that didn't work? Maybe you took a
Mhm.
billboard out in the middle of Bucktown and it flopped or something, like tell me
Yeah.
some stories.
Yeah, I'll start with that one for sure. So that was we did the shopping carts. We spent a couple
Oh
thousand
yeah.
dollars on shopping carts at Mariano's, and we never got a single lead from that. And that might have been the marketing. I'd have to remember and go pull it up. But at the time, the truth is, Jill, the reason we weren't growing, it took us 7 years to cross 200 members, and it took me 6 months to cross 300 members. And it's because we were not treating it like a business. And unfortunately, as like you're describing for yourself, I've coached hundreds of gym owners over the years in this way. And so many people I could introduce you to that are the best trainers and coaches and community leaders in their town, in the world, in the country, that just can't pay the bills. They can't go on vacation for fear of the light going out. And it's not because they're not good at what they do. It's because they're not focused on the things that they suck at, right? Um,
Right.
and so because of that, as soon as I decided to be a full-time entrepreneur, I knew that I was going to need help knowing exactly where to put my energy. And so I hired a mentor that taught me and many others how to grow a business. And what we did well that many other people did well was we started by having a compelling front end offer that multiple times over covered the cost to acquire a client. That was huge for growth. And what that means in layman's terms is we set up an ATM machine where every time I put a dollar in, $6 would come out. And so we grew incredibly rapidly. I learned this game of just standing at this machine, putting in a dollar and pulling out six, putting in a dollar and pulling out six. Um, I think a lot of people that we worked side by side with, other gym owners who I love and respect, struggled because they found a tactic that worked and they mistakenly didn't run it through the lens of themselves, their core values, their missions, their
Mm.
tribes. That was never a possibility for me. And so some of the problems that the folks I worked side by side with had, we just didn't have because we would never. As a part of this tribe, we had such a strong identity that we would never sacrifice that identity for any tactic. And so because of that, we were able to break right through Dunbar's number. And I think at our peak, we probably had about 550 people in the room, which for a CrossFit gym is pretty respectable.
You think? What was the size of the gym?
That gym we were in, so if you want to talk about mistakes, I've had 7 locations, I think,
Okay.
over the last 12 and
All
a half
in
years.
Bucktown?
All in or around. We
Like
had
Wicker Park, yeah.
Yeah, Wicker Park, Lincoln Park. The
Okay.
one right now you would probably say that it's Logan Square,
Okay.
right on the border. It's Armitage and North
Okay.
Avenue. But yeah, I think we were probably 6,000 square feet. It was a big triangle building, and we built it all out ourselves. It was a beautiful place, but we had no parking, so we had a valet for that period of time when we were really cranking. So we had the front desk always there doing valet, and like everybody would hang their keys when they came in, because we had like a one way in 8 car spots that was like, yeah, we made it work. And actually, I could tell you a bunch of stories about really successful gyms that just don't have the physical space or
Yep.
the equipment that's fancy or any of that stuff. And it really doesn't come down to that. What it really comes down to, my friend Will Hurst just put a video out about this, but by the time you hear this, that won't matter. Um, yeah, it's really not about any of that. It was really about people feeling like they belonged somewhere. A lot of my clients are single people that moved to the city of Chicago and maybe didn't have a tribe to be a part of, and we were so welcoming to that. I mean, you didn't have to be the fittest athlete, you didn't have to look a certain way with your sports bra on and your booty shorts or any of that stuff, and there was a place for you. And my dogs would come up and snuggle with you every
Yes,
time you
you got
came
gym
in, and
dogs.
oh yeah,
Yay.
you
Are
know
they
it.
boxers?
No, we've got
Okay.
2 Australian Shepherds. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. Some of those
What?
gym owners are cringing right now hearing that. I know that's a
Uh,
pretty divisive
oh,
uh,
isn't?
debate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like 50-50. Some people
Yeah,
think it's the worst thing in the world, and some
yeah.
people wouldn't think of doing it any other way.
Right. You mentioned hot yoga. I gotta ask, what's your go-to hot yoga studio in the city, or what
Yeah,
was
there's
it?
one. I think it's called Love Yoga. It's something like
Okay.
this. Like no, Yoga Garage. It's Yoga Garage. Zen
Oh
Garage.
yeah,
Yoga
yeah.
Garage.
Zen
Zen
Garage.
Garage.
I think it's Zen
Yeah,
Garage.
yeah. They're great. My wife and I would go there. I don't do as much hot yoga as I used to, but I do fire and ice. So I'll do sauna and cold plunge somewhat regularly. Right now, I don't do CrossFit or any of that. I do jujitsu and kickboxing 4 or 5 times a week.
Very cool. I'm Baptiste
Yeah.
trained, which is hot vinyasa. So
Ah,
the
that's cool.
founders, yeah, the founders of Core Power were originally
Mm,
Baptiste trained, and I taught for many years in a at a studio in like Wrigleyville ish,
mm,
um, Ohm on the Range was the
cool.
name of it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cute.
yeah, awesome. Okay, so 7 locations. That's a lot. What are you doing now in Indiana? Take me to current day
Mm.
business.
Yeah, so I sold 2 businesses in 2 years, and so I decided to retire. I retired for a year, and I spent a year in service. I started a podcast. I had no clients, no employees, no partners, and I did. Here's exactly what I did. So if you ever want to know what you love to do, just retire for a year, and you will find out very quickly what you want to spend your time doing. So every day I spent hours with my wife and our brand new beautiful daughter Lucy. Every day I went to the gym and I trained for kickboxing for about an hour and jujitsu for about an hour and a half. Every single day, I spent time on the phone with an entrepreneur, whether on Zoom with entrepreneur, either in the form of creating a podcast in my Spear and Clover podcast and telling their stories, or just helping people solve problems, talking to them about my problems. What I call masterminding has been a huge part of my personal and professional development, which is why I lead a tribe now of entrepreneurs in the Spear and Clover Mastermind. But yeah, in November of this year, I decided it was time to get moving and start a new business. And so I didn't go. I went into a float tank with one idea, and it wasn't how can I make the most money or what is it that people want. What I went in was because I don't like to sell. So I went into this float and I said, okay, what would I stand on a rooftop or on a mountaintop and beat my chest over and fight for? And those things are what ended up the program that we now sell for entrepreneurs.
Oh, nice. Okay, so flush that out for me.
Sure. So it's called Dynasty Defined. And the reason we call our program Dynasty Defined is because, unfortunately, probably like you, Jill, I'm a Bears fan. And for the past For the past 30 plus years, the Chicago Bears have crammed down our throat that we're one draft away, we're one quarterback away, we're one coach away, or some new playbook. And the truth is, we're never even close. However, one state north, you have the Green Bay Packers, and it seems like they've had 2 coaches in the last 50 years. Well, but the truth is, they've had 2 coaches in the past 50 years. They've had 2 quarterbacks in 20 years. And it seems like no matter who's on the field, they always have a chance to win. And it's because dynasty organizations that can win every single year aren't relying on one player or one coach or a certain set of tactics. They have strong foundations. Everybody knows what they are. And then they have frameworks that scale those foundations to their team. And then once they get that team moving, they have the ability to track them and keep them in flow while they're on the field. And so that's what we do. We help people with foundational things for entrepreneurship, things like core values, things like understanding your mission, understanding what your goals are, and exactly the steps you can do today to get to those goals. We call that making it to the Hall of Fame. Um, and then we have frameworks. How do we scale that magic that's between your ears scientifically out to a team? Because the people I typically help, Jill, are magicians. These are people who do it all. They think that they're the ones that have magic between their ears and they've got to break down the brick walls and wear all the different hats and all of that stuff. And that was me for a long time, Jill. But what I found was that was actually the thing that was keeping me from getting from point one to point two. It got me from point zero to point one, but it was hurting me getting to the next level. And so, what I try to do is help people to put down the sledgehammer, to take off the hats, and just ask them the questions that their business needs answered.
It's funny that you bring up our neighbors to the north because I grew up in Wisconsin and I tell everybody that I got kicked out because I don't like
Oh, yeah.
fear the Packers. So
That's
and
funny.
and probably worse, no people don't like cringe less when I tell them that I actually grew up a Vikings fan. Because my
Me too.
father, yeah, really?
My dad's from Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah, so is mine.
Yeah.
So funny. Stop paralleling my life.
Come on.
So it's funny that you also mentioned um, kind of people putting all their eggs in one basket. So when I work with business owners, a lot of times that's what I see is all of their efforts, all of their marketing strategies, all of their time, their resources are being dumped into one kind of tactic. And, you got to diversify a little bit, right? You can't just focus. I am of the mindset that I refuse to believe that you can solely grow your business sitting in front of a computer or on social
Mm,
media. There's a huge push for people to be all over social media 24 hours a day, posting 3 times a day on every single platform. And, that can work well in some industries. But at the same time, I I think it runs deeper than that. I think you can actually establish a deeper sense of relationship building in person in 20 minutes than you can in
mm,
20 Facebook posts, right?
sure.
Um, what do you see business owners struggling with? I'm sure it's different. Do you have like a certain, are you working mostly with gym owners then, or is it all types of businesses?
No, yeah, I work with all types of businesses, primarily service-focused businesses, and definitely with magicians. Those people that did it all to get to where they're at right
Yeah.
now are the people that I can most help, right?
Yeah.
I was a commercial banker, so I certainly could help somebody that has a brick manufacturer. That's what we did for a couple of years, but that's just not my interest, right? And so I have people that are OBGYNs. I have people that are that own their own practice. I have people that are cannabis coaches. I have people that are podcasters. I have people that are gym owners. I have people that are marketing agencies, right? And what it all kind of comes down to is helping those people who have kind of gotten stuck turning their passion into a prison because
Mm.
they end up selling their time for money because they feel like they're the only ones that can actually do the really critical value added work that they do. And so, what I try to help them do is first to codify that magic into science and just get it out on paper. Let's figure out exactly what it is. And then let's take steps to find the team that can energize that for you. And so, to answer your initial question, Jill, the number one problem that I hear now, as opposed to in 2019, let's say, is finding employees that
Yeah.
can effectively scale the business, that won't leave, and that won't cost you an arm and a leg. And if you know anything about CrossFit gyms, we're experts at that. We're experts at having professional organizations of really like ruthless executors who make like $300 to $500 a month on average from us. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
a team of 15 people on average over the past several years, and a few of them full time. At one point, we had like 7 full-time people, but for the most part, we had people that were lawyers that were showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning to coach the 5, 6, and 7 o'clock class because they loved it, Jill, because
Yeah.
they really cared about our mission and they really were aligned with our core values. And what I like to try and show people is in almost all cases, you can find that person in your organization and you can help to align their interests with yours. And it's just beautiful when you see everybody in the boat rowing hard in the same direction.
Yeah, I love that you call them magicians. That's really my target too, that like solo
Mm,
entrepreneur wearing all the hats, doing it all themselves.
mhm.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to, I don't know if convince is the right word, but they think they're good at it. It's almost like they don't recognize the need for help sometimes.
Yeah,
Or
I was
they
thinking
can't
about
let
that.
go of that control.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. If I was in a boat and I saw somebody struggling as hard as they could to swim up and keep their head above water, I would help them immediately. But if I was in a boat and I saw somebody swimming as hard as they could downward towards the bottom of the lake, there's just nothing I can do for that
Yeah,
person, Jill.
right. Oh man, you'd start going the other way.
Yeah, I would
That's
assume they knew what they were doing, right?
yeah, right. You really want to be at the bottom,
Yeah.
apparently. Oh man. I'm not gonna ask who your OBGYN client is because it's probably my doctor, and then
No,
the way our worlds are colliding.
not like he's not from here. He's from Louisville. It's shout out to Nathan Riley. He's the holistic OBGYN and he is absolutely wonderful.
Oh,
Yeah, he is fantastic.
we need more of those.
Yeah, you'd
Oh
like
my
him.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Talk to me. Are you pretty crunchy? Are you pretty
Me?
organic?
No. I'm not crunchy, definitely not, but I'm open-minded to anything. And what I will tell you is there are some things that I do not see connection to, and there are some things that I actually do see like logical and reasonable explanations. So like, for instance, um you know, not the secret, but I'm trying to think of what that phrase is. Like putting things out into the universe or whatever. Well, we actually have some scientific basis that your reticular activating system actually does sort of point you in the direction of,
Manifestation.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like some people will say manifestation, other people will say reticular activating system, right? So there definitely is some neurological stuff and some behavioral stuff that I think matter. I would also say anybody who's tried psychedelics knows that there is a connection that we don't fully understand. And I take umbrance with that. I don't have a solution for it. But there's a difference between thinking and knowing. And I can tell you that there have been moments where I've known that we're all connected.
That's pretty cool. So have you done what is it called? Syllaban?
Psilocybin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a neon mushroom right there on my wall from my wife. Um, Here, show you. Yeah, I got my little cup. Uh, yeah, listen, I absolutely use psilocybin and psychedelics as a part of my practice, and I would say it's primarily, if not exclusively, for my business and my personal life. Right. This is not something that I do as a party. I've never done it in that way. It's something that allows me. So if you think you're a coach, if you think about the best job you ever did coaching somebody other than you, right? You have imperfect information on that person, and you also are not inside their head. So you have to do these tricks to try and get them to put their ego down or to try and look at themselves objectively. Um, Ideally, a Buddhist monk or someone would be
Hmm.
able to put their own ego down, would be able to stand next to them, and then they would have perfect information, 100% information about the coaching client who is in fact themselves. Psychedelics or meditation or Wim Hof breathing or sauna or ice baths or jujitsu or CrossFit or hot yoga are just a quicker way to push that button, to put down the self, to look at yourself objectively and see what you're doing that's strengthening you and see what you're doing that's poisoning you. And it's just so easy in those moments to go like, why would I ever cause harm to myself? Or why would I ever hold on to anger about this thing with your significant other or any number of things? It's actually pretty astonishing and it's been incredibly valuable. And when I say that, I mean personally, and I also mean I've probably made a few $1 million doing it.
Do you go like on a guided journey, or are you just doing this at home on a Wednesday?
Mhm.
Like, what do you?
So I mentioned earlier going into float tanks. I do a float tank about once a month, usually aided by a small amount of that. And I also go on what I call solo missions. So I live in the Indiana Dunes. That's where my Spear and Clover logo comes from. The name of my
Okay.
company and my personal symbol that will end up on my headstone someday. And what I'll do is I'll go on a long ruck with my dogs. So typically I'll have a 40-pound pack on my back, and sometimes I'll carry a 40-pound log on my shoulder. And I'll just be hoofing, head down, feet moving, thinking about my place in the universe, thinking about the world. And the dogs are running out into the woods and having the time of their lives. And that's why the symbol is, the combination of me hard charging towards my goals, which is military mindset, and the combination of my dogs having the time of their life, which is the spirit of the puppy.
That's so cool. I listened to Brian Rose of London Real. Do you know that podcast?
No, I've
Yeah,
heard of it though.
he talks a lot about his journeys, and but I think he usually does it with like a shaman or something like
Mm.
that. I don't know that he's off doing it by himself. Did I gotta ask you about this one? My yoga teacher, or the guy that I trained under, Baron Baptiste, he put out a podcast. I think it was just yesterday, and he was talking about these monks. I don't know when this story broke. I don't know if you heard about this. I
Yeah,
think
with
it
the
was,
meth.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That is, I was laughing so hard because he was making all these meth jokes, like they methed up their
yeah,
methitation, and it was so funny. Yes, so for those of you who don't know, they drug tested these monks, and they all tested positive for meth.
yeah,
Um, and Baron commented on, just had he had a 26-minute podcast, just kind of commenting on
yeah,
when you put somebody on a pedestal, and you have to realize that that person is just a human. right? And they make mistakes and they do things and they justify things just as much as the next person.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I mean, we could go down like that a whole rabbit hole because I think a lot of people have put their mentors on a pedestal or they put their, you know, I don't know, they join really expensive networking groups and they
Sure.
those people are up on the pedestal maybe because they're paying them so much, but um like let's start to wrap a little bit.
Well, I want to comment
Tell.
on that if you don't mind.
Oh yeah,
So
sure,
I just
sure.
finished a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which I recommend to anybody that can hear my voice right now. It's unbelievable. But he had an interesting point about substances and conscious shifting. And that, by the way, this is a multi-billionaire that was an early investor. He started Angel List, which is a huge angel investor foundation and incubator. And his book is awesome. But he talks about how anytime we shift our consciousness, whether it's with caffeine or marijuana or alcohol or psilocybin or ayahuasca or any number of things, crystal meth, it's actually a spiritual pursuit because it's us shifting our minds into a different place than where we are normally. And so I think that there is virtue if you treat it with the umbrance and you know value and honor that it really deserves. And so, I have mentioned I have a friend who's a cannabis coach. He uh, believes strongly that we have access to these substances now. You live in Illinois,
Yeah.
but we didn't bring back the shamanic tradition, which sort of accompanied those things for thousands of years. So certainly, it is a natural state of humans to, and this has been proven. Read Food of the Gods. This has been proven. We've evolved with these substances by our side the entire time, except for some of the newer ones. But we didn't bring back the tradition of wisdom and ceremony and that type of stuff that comes along with it. And I think that his mission is a really valuable one for the world right now. So shout out to Ryan Sprague because he's really doing amazing work.
Yeah, and Baron touched on that a little bit as well in that 26-minute podcast, just about they can see why, how you could equate it to that in state of enlightenment, right? When you're
Mm.
in that, when you're on that personal journey, that personal high. But then, the other side of that is he was saying like it takes you out of the present, or it can take you out of the present. And why would I want to do that? I spent my whole life working to get really present here and now, and
Mm.
and so why would I want to do anything that takes me out of the present moment?
Yeah. I wonder if he's
Um,
ever done meth.
he has not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if he is, he's not fessing up to it, but he's not the type of guy to not be transparent or honest. But
Yeah.
uh, I think he said that he has an occasional drink, which was interesting to me because I always wondered that about him. I did my first teacher training back in 2010, so this is somebody I've been following and going to trainings with for 12 years, and I always kind of wondered if he drank, but he said that he has, occasionally drinks and he has smoked pot, but that's about it. So,
Mm.
um, but yeah, so interesting. I don't know. I like uh I don't think I'll ever do it, but I definitely I enjoy hearing other people's experiences with it. And I can fully support it. But I do also know very, very well the first hands. I mean, I was, spent my whole 20s in the city of Chicago, have known many people who have fallen to drugs and alcohol and
Mm.
the dangerous paths of it too. So, okay, so wrapping up here, I want to ask you one question. I ask a lot of my guests this question. What do you think the world needs to hear? The number one thing right now that the world needs to hear?
That's a good question. It's kind of a tie between nobody is going to come and save you, so you'd better get to work saving yourself. And then the second one is probably take a walk. I don't think enough people stop doing the tactical day to day stuff long enough to go on long walks. And so, if you are an entrepreneur, that's my biggest advice. And if you're not an entrepreneur, I would say nobody's coming. So, get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And where can people connect with you, find you, hire you?
Yeah, so you can find me on at spearandclover.com. We have access. There's some free content for entrepreneurs. We also host a bi-weekly mastermind with guest speakers for every session and peer breakout groups. We also have, of course, the program Dynasty Defined I talked about earlier. And my platform of choice is Instagram, so you can find analysis videos on there, testimonials, all sorts of interesting stuff, clips from the podcast, and that would be at Jason Skeesick as well as Spear and Clover. And of course, we're on each platform other than TikTok, so you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever.
Awesome. Great. So
Yeah.
I'll link all those in the episode notes for our listeners. Jason, you're an interesting guy.
Thanks, Jill. I
I'm
appreciate it.
I'm glad we connected for several reasons. There right now I have a lot of people in my life that have very similar core values, that have very similar backgrounds, and approach business the same way. And I'm getting really excited about it. And if you don't mind,
Mm.
I'm going to shoot you an email and I'm going to connect you with somebody.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. And he's a former gym owner as well, and a podcaster, and just somebody that I think you're really going to vibe with. So
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Jill.
so I'm excited. I'm glad that we chatted. Listeners, you got to know how dedicated Jason is. Somehow my Google Calendar, which I don't even use, sent him an invite for today's podcast at 6 a.m. And there he was, ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's noon. We had down noon, or somehow I messed up. But I just want to thank you again for being flexible and making this work, and apologize for the early morning wake up call.
Oh, of course. Anytime. I'll do it again at 6 p.m., whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I love it. I love your attitude. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you for listening to my mom's podcast.